What's up everybody, we back at it again with another Magnum Quest video, and in this one it's going to be part 2 of the tier list video series. I'm going to waste no more time, let's get it. And we're back, we're going to go right into it. We're in the mid game now. If you didn't watch part 1, which dealt with the early game and how this is going to be all set up, I would highly suggest watching this. It will be clickable at the end of the video. I decided to make mid-game chapter 17 all the way up to chapter 26 because after 26, 27 plus becomes a different breed of animal. One thing to note here is I did make a late game progression video a while back with Ares in the thumbnail, which will be seen here. All of that information does still apply, but instead of that referring to the late game, it's just going to be the mid game. Once again, over here you can see I have the OP tier at this side. Mid-game heroes are as followed: Dracula, Ares, and Ione. Told you she would make it into this category. Clicking on Dracula, when he was introduced into this game, this is actually a decision I definitely didn't regret by doing a summons video and going all in on him until I got him to 6 stars, unlike Fabian. Oh man, Fabian. Not a fan of that hero right now. So Dracula, the hero model, doesn't look very scary, at least in this game, but his skill kit is very scary. I mean, he teleports a frontline hero, which can easily be calculated by placing him in the front to remove the randomness factor. He can't teleport himself, so the other frontliner is guaranteed, and as you can see with the other OP heroes, that's going to be Ares most likely. He puts that hero in the enemy backline. However, in this video clip to show you, it is going to be random. It can be here, 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 anywhere. It can be very frustrating, but we can't have it all. He also applies a blood contract to this teleported hero, making them share the damage. Then he also teleports a random enemy. Remember the randomness, while it's back, it can be very frustrating to the most enemy dense area, which will be where your frontliner is. So a lot of people seem to underestimate this vampire's damage. He can put up some serious numbers. His ultimate eventually with levels silences all enemies in that radius. Silence is huge in this game. Wait till we get to Katos, that demonic hero is going to be laughing. Also, you can use his teleport skill to bypass the example enemy heroes like Fair's Pull or Gilla's knockback by placing that frontline hero, so when he or she gets teleported, they change skill direction. Clicking on Ares, remember when I mentioned he lacks pre-level 201? Well, get that hero to level 201, put some Ascension stars on him, and watch this orc skyrocket your progression. The main reason for this is at level 201, his ultimate gains the leech effect. So remember how he would pop his death avoidance effect after taking fatal damage, then just stand around or spin around with no HP? Everything has changed now. He can spin with his ultimate and go back to full HP basically. Typical formation I run with him is what you can see in this video. You got your Ares plus 4 Forest, your Ione, Fi, Oshishi, and Fair. You can play around with hero positioning depending on the enemy setup, but you're going to want your Fair opposite the enemy heroes you want pulled in, so Ares can walk up and laugh, spin, and win. Then with the introduction of Dracula, it kind of put Fair on the bench. He does keep it warm as he still has his purposes, but then it became Ares, Dracula, and then for the backline you could do like Ione, Sur, and Fi. You can play around with this hero positioning while depending on the enemy setup, swapping Sur for maybe Oshishi or Harry, depending on what the stage needs. If more CC is needed, I would go with Oshishi. If more damage is needed, I would go with Harry. That's just typically how I would decide. I won't go much into detail about Ares. You've seen him, he's OP majority of the game and suggest everyone picking up for fast progression. So Ione I have in the OP tier as well because, well, she's needed. Used basically in all setups for the sole reason of her Vines to the Rescue skill. Having the ability to save a hero who takes fatal damage is huge, and then also give some heals. It gives you an edge in every single fight you use her. And then at level 3 of this skill, you can see it can be activated twice in each battle. It's a game changer, and in mid game and late game, I would say you're going to see her in every single setup. Another skill of hers is her ultimate. It entangles all enemies, rendering them unable to move or attack. It's alright, it just frustrates me a lot because there's many times I want that entangle effect to do the quick stun to CC the enemy hero. Maybe on those important fights with Durla where your other hero has her ultimate skill on cooldown, but it just seems to rarely happen. Now moving over to the tier rankings, I'm just going to highlight a couple hero changes compared to the early game. So as you can see, the notable changes here are going to be Harry moving up from the A tier, and then Gaia dropped off my list completely. Harry for me jumps from the A tier to now the S tier. The fights last longer, so he's able to be utilized better with his ultimate, haste plus attack buff. Rather than just on bosses, and he makes your Ares go spin faster. Gaia dropped off my list completely. As soon as I was able to 201 level my Ares. Some players may take longer due to their bad luck with summons to bring up their Ares to an acceptable Ascension stars to use, so in that case I would place her A tier for situational, as they may keep her around to like maybe chapters 18 to 20. Also, the Wind and DPS focused team, I don't know many who even use this, so my third account I haven't pushed in a while due to time restraints, so I don't know how far this is going to take you. So on the safe side, both Winden and Cinia dropped to the A tier, but this might change after pushing more on my third account and getting more experience with the setup. Other than those, the changes are here and there for B tier and C tier. So now that we covered both the early game and the mid game, all we have left is the late game. It's going to be the last part of the tier list video series.
Round 1. Fight!
And we're back with the final one. So right here, as you can see, we're going to kick this off. We're in the late game now. I decided to make late game chapters 27 plus because really at this very moment, it requires a specific set of heroes to progress at a consistent pace. I mean, until you don't meet those minimum combat power requirements, and it's most likely going to happen. Once again, over here, you're going to see I have the OP tier at the side. Late game heroes are as followed. We got Sur, Dracula, Katos, and Ione. Two new contenders here are going to be Sur and Katos. I'm not going to cover Dracula or Ione because I already did, but I can knock them all out in the same video clip. So clicking on Sur, you're going to be seeing that I utilize Katos, Dracula, and then Ione, Sur, and Fi. The reason Fi isn't in the OP tier is because I tend to swap them out sometimes depending on the situation, for Oshishi as an example. So Sur is going to be your main damage dealer for the rest of the current game chapters until they add more, and then maybe things will change, who knows. But for now, Sur will be netting you tens of millions of damage. Obviously this has to do with your squad level, your star map investment, etc. But you get the idea. She's going to be your main DPS carry. Like I mentioned when I went over her in the S tier back in the early game, when she's in her awakened state, which is her ultimate, she goes hard in the damage aspect, which by now you probably have a decent rune, hopefully. So you can have her ultimate with 100% uptime, despite not having Harry or Cinia in your setup. So she does constant damage and she has the support of the other heroes. So early game had Gaia or Winden, mid game had Ares, possibly Winden. I haven't tested this far yet on my third account. You may have others, but those are just the ones that I chose to go with. And now late game has Sur. Late game is all about CC, crowd control. The enemy stages, some of them are just straight up crazy in terms of damage, burst potential, or heroes you don't want to get their ults off, or simply Ekra. No one likes versing an Ekra, so you need to be able to lock those heroes down. Other DPS contenders, but still nowhere near as consistent and big of an impact as Sur, I found were Dracula. Like I said earlier, he can put out some numbers. Katos, only really if he dies and then takes an enemy with him. Fi, Issy, and then Ekra. Moving over to Katos, now this is the game changer for these chapters. As you can see in the video clip, he is constantly getting his ultimate off. As soon as he uses it, he builds up enough energy right away to be able to use it once again. There is no diminishing returns in this game, so you can effectively permanently silence the enemy team. So you're going to want to rock that hit ER stat on your rune, which will make the difference. The reason why my Katos can build up this quickly, and believe me, it's not even that quick. I know other players who either have full hit ER on their rune or close to it, and it's because of that they're able to do so. I use the energy green rune, but I have seen players use the blue one. Since he gets teleported by Dracula into the enemy team, he's going to be focused. So with hit ER, he's going to be getting hit non-stop from multiple enemies, allowing him with the hit ER, which means hit energy recovery, to build up his next ultimate almost instantly depending on your amount of hit ER percentage. He can hit the enemy team no matter what position, no matter what way he's facing. His ultimate silence hits everyone. This will make the stage much easier for you, and I've seen players with 2-star or even 3-star Katos being utilized in chapter 27 for this very reason. However, you will want to eventually get him higher, especially to be able to access his star map at gold 4 for many reasons, one of which would be to minimize the chances of seeing that not meeting the minimum combat power requirement. He does decent damage as well with his Shield of Fire, where he generates a shield that does damage to nearby enemies, but other than his ultimate silence, the Searing Whip of Hell skill, depending on the hero criteria, because you do need to have them at a certain amount of HP percentage or lower, can be super useful as he's going to take that enemy out with him as he falls in battle. Now moving over to the tier rankings, I'm just going to be highlighting a couple hero changes compared to mid-game. So as you can see, some of the notable changes besides the newly added OP heroes were Amirrr, Rickers, and Issy moved up from the B tier, and Ekra moved up from the A tier. Amirrr went from the B tier to now S tier because of this reason, haste. Also her Goose Trick is a decent form of CC. I just hate randomness, and because this game does have a lot of it, this skill is no different. The enemy she chooses is random. With her haste buff, your heroes can cycle through their skills faster, allowing more lockdown of the enemies plus more damage potential, and I've seen many players utilize her quite frequently in these late chapters. Rickers went from the B tier to now the A tier because of the sheer amount of CC. Rickers has many stuns and can be a solid choice that can potentially win you that stage that you may be stuck on for many days, many weeks, many months, hopefully not many months, but I have had that happen. His ultimate has stun, his other skill has stun, his auto attacks can stun, you get a stun, you get a stun, you get a stun, he stuns a lot. Issy went from B tier to now S tier. I've heard of players using her in the late game with success. Obviously you're going to need an invested Issy, but her damage numbers are very good and she brings a lot of utility to your setup. The unique thing about her is her swarms constantly spread and those enemies affected by them have their attack and energy reduced. It's super helpful. Oh, and her swarms can also stun if they crit. So yeah, she's very strong and many players will have seen this if you played during the recent Halloween Prince Pumpkin event boss. And finally, Ekra went from the A tier to now the S tier. You have versed her as an enemy in the stages. She isn't fun. She can pop off an absurd amount of damage. One of the main reasons is her protege skill, allowing her to steal attack, and because at this point the enemy heroes have such crazy power, it results in a big attack boost. She already had awesome AoE area damage from her burn effects, but this just amplifies that. Overall, a very solid hero with a unique healing block effect that can be utilized on those annoying stages with lots of heals. Well, that's it. So to anyone who watched all 3 parts of this tier list video series, I really do appreciate it. Hopefully you found it helpful in some way, whether that's just to understand what heroes seem to be more popular at specific stages of the game, or just the examples I used when going over the OP heroes. I will be doing a boss DPS tier list and potentially an arena tier list as well. As always, thanks for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video and the little mini series, subscribe for future videos, and stay tuned for the next one.